We're here today with Dénommé Welch and Catherine Magowan from Unsettled Scores. I am Kevin Ormsby, the Program Manager for CPAMO, Cultural Pluralism at the Arts Movement in Ontario. And we're just going to spend some time just talking about our event on May 27 to 29. First of all, welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Inspired, I know I'm familiar with you for a very long period of time. Catherine, I'm just actually meeting you for the first time. Just want to say, am I meeting you for the first time? No! There's 56 artists and organizations involved in this, so
Yeah.
apologies.
No worries.
Just a brief conversation about your artistic practice in terms of what you do, your approaches, what informs your work, and we'll just take it from there.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I work as a writer and a composer, and we work as collaborative composers together.
Yeah, and I'm a musician and composer and collaborator with Scott.
And what sort of music do you guys do? What's the genre?
Typically like classical music, and we write for Baroque instruments as well, early music, and yeah, kind of that's kind of it.
Mm.
But we're not limited to those instruments or those genres. When we compose, we don't tend to think of things as being a certain style or genre. It's more what serves the story the best.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like that articulation of not sticking to a style and genre. If we're influenced by so many things in this world, then why, as musicians and or as artists, can we not pull from those particular things? Explain to me this idea of how you guys collaborate together. I don't want to go into some of the stories that I know from before. I know you guys did an opera that received some repute, I'll say in quotation mark. But that was also a collaborative process. Could you explain in terms of how you work in that particular way?
Well, sometimes what we'll do is, I typically am mostly responsible for writing the text. Sometimes we're starting to experiment with that now, as writing text together in some of the work, like this piece that we'll be presenting at the end of the month. So we look at the text and we start to have discussion about like what sort of themes we could explore in terms of the musical themes that could underscore that, and then we start to divvy up the parts, and sometimes that we mix that up too. It's never sort of like the same every time. Sometimes we divvy it up that way. We swap our musical ideas. Sometimes we will jam, we'll improvise together on our instruments and then record it and then later transcribe it. Sometimes we just work purely on with the sheet music, and we just go with what's in our head. So what you might add to that?
You got that perfect.
All right. Are there other forms or political context to your work? Are there other influences that you bring into your work, whether that be, again, an Indigenous practice, or is it informed by other worldviews, philosophies?
Yeah, well, we do try to use a lot of decolonizing methods in our work, and especially recently, we've been trying to incorporate a lot of land-based methods. So it's not unusual for us to go rent a cabin in the woods for a week and just compose it mixed in with hikes in the woods and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Especially a lot of our work has a really strong environmental element to it. So for us, being part of the environment and getting a lot of inspiration from that is important.
Yeah, that sums it up.
I got it perfect?
I'm curious to dig further into this idea of a land-based practice. Actually, CPAMO was started through the CCI, which is now the Ontario Presents Network, and Warren Garrett at Ontario Presents was part of our last cohort for the CPAMO POC, which is Pluralism for Organizational Change process. And he was talking about this idea of what would happen if every artist in this country started their practice from an idea of the land and indigeneity at the center of it. So I'm curious, maybe to explain some more about what exactly is involved in this idea of a land-based practice, or working with the land, or working with the sound of the land, and getting information also from nature in that particular way. If you could talk some more about that.
Well, sometimes depending on what characters or where the story is situated, often the stories tend to be situated out where the region I've been, where I grew up, where I'm from. And so we spend a lot of time there just to really kind of better inform ourselves by the sounds. Like there might be different sounds, different animals in those regions, or the air sounds different, the wind sounds different. So we really spend time kind of listening in that regard, being within it without disturbing the land. That's also we tend to, make ourselves like we were not there at the same time. So we'll spend a great deal of time becoming more literate in terms of like what does it mean to write from this space, and we do spend time literally in that space composing while we're there, and then when we return back down south, sometimes we just compose from the memory of it. So being aware of that, and yeah, so like in our current opera, whole sequence of sound of water and waves was emerged from composing while we were up there in a very specific area that sort of gave the backdrop to this current opera, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, Catherine?
Yeah, and that same opera, there's one character that is really, I guess you wouldn't think of them as being alive in the conventional sense, but they're a geological formation, and we visited that formation, and just like the power of being in that space was very inspiring for that specific character.
And then gives it like a lot more personality, like too. So I don't know, it's fun, and especially with the artists that we've had the opportunity to work with, they bring that to life as well, right? So yeah.
I just noticed the smile and the joy on your face in actually recapturing that memory. Embodied memory is really interesting and important for me as an artist as well. But I'm really curious, because you mentioned the idea of north and south, and I think that's an interesting way of also looking at how in like a city like Toronto, a creative practice is done where you walk into a very sometimes silent space and you end up in that space creating work and recapturing a memory. But here you are, you're going into those particular spaces and actually working from those particular spaces in memory. Do you notice a difference when you come down south and you're like now in a different space to do creation, to do work, now having both sides of the south and the north as an experience? Can you talk some more about what that potentially is for you as creators?
I don't know if we think about it necessarily as north and south, just because of the spaces we're in. It's more like urban and environmental. So I think we do definitely feel the difference very much in our bodies when we come back into the urban environment.
Yeah, it's maybe more quiet, some of the spaces we go, whereas here you get a lot more interjection of like the sounds of vehicles and people and crosswalk sounds, like, so there's a lot of difference, I guess you would say ways that it could, that backdrop impacts as well, obviously, but I think the way you kind of capture this.
But even in our urban creative space, we've tried to sort of recreate that sort of environmental aspect.
We often have to constantly be reminding each other too. That helps a lot to remember. So which is an important part of the oral tradition and knowledge, is remembering what you learned while you were in that space, right? Because you're not always going to be there, but you can carry that the way of remembering forward. So
honoring of those particular experiences and moments.
And being real that this is the world we're in right now. So how do we take those skills and just apply them in this world we're in?
Cool. Could you explain or tell us a little bit more? Don't give it away, but tell us a bit more about what you probably will be presenting for the gathering.
Sure. The piece is called Hate Mail and Irreconcilable Trolls, and it looks at sort of the anonymous internet culture and what people will say when they don't think that they can be identified.
Where they can say their opinion while being veiled, feeling that sense of security to say what you want. And so it's a political work. When you're talking about political, it pulls out some material from historical documents from the House of Commons, words spoken by Johnny MacDonald, and their perspective at the time of Indigenous people, and then how that's sort of carried through today. You can sort of see that chorus of opinion still emerging, and perhaps even more with this online presence, where a lot of these debates come forward, and some are, pretty blunt and bold about their thoughts, right? So it covers that, and it's an interesting segue away. We were exploring cabaret type style theater a few years ago with a previous work we'd done, sort of like in vignette style. And in this case, what we did is we sort of take the convention of like the recital hall, and sort of play with that. So we have one singer with the accompanist, and then but the actual recital itself is extremely political. And then we've incorporated electronics as well. So projections. So we've come also on the side a bit part of the performance as well, because we have engineered that aspect of it while the live performance is occurring. So,
wow. It sounds like a lot to see. Oh, it does. It does. It's great.
And it's quite possibly the first piece in the world written for voice, piano, and contrabassoon.
Yeah, she's very proud of mentioning that.
Yes.
I can't wait to see it and experience it in that way. I mean, as I said, we have so many artists lined up. I literally said to myself, how do we do this? What's been going on? How is this even possible? But I think that's also some of the way we're looking at what we do, right? It's from a pluralist lens. And so to hear you talk about all those things, from how nature or environments support your creation, but also the Indigenous practice, or also how different instruments or different ways to experience instruments and sounds also support your practice, is a really beautiful thing. The last question we're going to ask is basically about why do you feel the sort of approach that you have for music is also very much a part of this, is an important part of the Canadian landscape for looking at music, or looking at the ways in which we are doing many sort of fusions, but ways in which we're looking at varying ways of creating from different standpoints and different viewpoints?
Well, just our identities fit that, because I mean, how can you get more, I guess, quote unquote Canadian than an Indigenous person and someone with first generation of Hungarian Jewish refugee parents? That seems to be reflective of what Canada is demographically.
Yeah, it's really diverse. So we really are interested in that expression in our music. So yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
it's pretty straightforward. I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, we're in Gallery 44, which is one of the current CPAMO Pluralism for Organization Change organizations. So if you have some time, you could maybe just check out the artwork. And thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing Unsettled Scores at our event at the Gathering in May. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.